start చేస్తాను. My dear friends, you are welcome to the talk on role of shares in the corporate finance. At the outset, we are supposed to know the meaning of a share. A share is a small divisible unit of the authorized share capital of a company, out of which it is offered to the public for subscription by way of investment in the securities of a public limited company. A shareholder is a person who purchased the shares and was allotted the number of shares which entails his holding of equity shares, which are otherwise called as ordinary shares. Now, a shareholder being a real owner of the company, he is eligible to take part in the management of the company. He can also participate in the elections and get elected to the board of directors and join them in the management process. Now, we have to know the various kinds of shares with their face value. The company's authorized share capital is divided into smaller units, each one being called as a share with a face value of smaller being 10 or even 1, ranging up to 100 or 1000 and the like. Those who buy the shares are called shareholders and their names are enrolled in the register of shareholders in the company. This is a mandatory register and it is one among the statutory books which are to be maintained as per the provisions of the Indian Companies Act 1956 and being modified from time to time, and latest being 2013 Indian Companies Act. The shareholders are having certain rights because of holding the shares in the company. A shareholder can be defined as the stakeholder or having a share in the company and is measured by the quantum of money for the purpose of liability and interest in terms thereon in the form of dividend. Now, we understand a dividend is a small divisible fragmented unit arising out of earnings of the company during a financial year. These dividends were tax free up to the 2019 and 2020 financial year because the tax was being paid by the corporate bodies for dividend distribution tax from 2020 and 21 financial year onwards. Now it is a liability of the assessee. I mean here, the assessee being the shareholder to pay the tax on the income arising from out of those dividends. Now, I would like to invite you to the various types of shares. The Indian Companies Act has classified broadly these shares of the company in the following three categories, namely, first one being equity shares or ordinary shares. Second one, preference shares. And third one being deferred shares or founders shares. Now, it is pertinent to know the explanation for each category of these shares. The equity shareholders, they are also called as ordinary shareholders. It means they do not have any special claim over the profits of the company, like debenture holders who are the creditors. These equity shareholders are the residuary beneficiaries. But if we look at in a real spirit, the equity shareholders are the real owners of the company, as they are having the load of risk being borne by the equity shareholders. And these people are required to meet all the obligations on the profits earned, like statutory dues, taxes, GST, and periodical payments of interest, and then only they distribute the profits after making all provisions for reserves and other allocations for distribution in the form of dividends, subject to approval in the annual general body meeting of the company. In the decision making process, in case of voting in the annual general body meeting, or if elected in the board of directors, an equity shareholder will have a say, and his voice will be heard in the meetings. They have every right to take part in the annual general body meeting or extraordinary general body meeting and exercise their vote in the elections. Unlike general elections or parliamentary elections, where impersonation is not allowed, here in case of companies, there is a special feature called proxy, which means a voter will appoint a nominee in case he is not able to attend the meeting. The so-called proxy, he can exercise his vote, and but this case of appointment of the proxy must be given information to the company before the commencement of the said meetings, at least 2 days, which means 48 hours. The proxy has the right to attend the meeting and listen and cast his voting, but he has no right to take part in the discussions, and he should be a silent spectator throughout the deliberations. Now, the equity shareholders are not given any specified tag rate of dividend on the profits. Hence, in the event of company making abnormal profits, the usual liabilities of making periodical payment of interest, taxes, and other provisions from out of profits, the remaining amount will be enjoyed by them. Sometimes they will enjoy more dividends than earlier because these are the real owners. They will have to clear the liabilities and they have to take the remaining proceeds in the event of liquidation of the company or in winding up process. Now, let us have a look at the preference shareholders. These preference shareholders, by name itself, get denoted that they have got some preference, but it doesn't give them any special ownership rights in the company. They are entitled to a fixed rate of dividend mentioned over the share as long as they tend to be preference shareholders. As and when this preference shareholding is returned by way of redemption, their claim for dividend will cease automatically. These preference shareholders have the right to get preference in the settlement of claims and clearance of dues at the time of winding up. But we have to note that it is only after the debenture holders the priority comes to preference shareholders. The preference shares are those which do not have any right of voting and participation in the meetings. So these people do not have any role in the decision making mechanism of the company. Now, let us look at different types of preference shares. They are cumulative preference shares. Second one, non-cumulative preference shares. Third being redeemable preference shares. Fourth, non-redeemable or otherwise irredeemable preference shares. Fifth being participating preference shares. Sixth, convertible preference shares. And seventh, non-convertible preference shares. Now, we'll have a quick look at each of these types. A cumulative preference share is a share with a fixed tag rate of dividend payable to the preference shareholder in case the company makes profits during the said financial year. Let us assume if suppose a company does not make any profit during a certain financial year and subsequently makes profits, these people have the right to receive the regular dividend along with the proceeds which are pending for those unpaid years at the rates prescribed there on the script. So these preference shareholders have the right to receive the payment in case of redemption of capital and in liquidation of the company or during the winding up process. But they will stand only after debenture holders because they will have a charge on the fixed assets of the company as the secure creditors. But preference shareholders are not creditors, but will be rated next to the debenture holders. Now, we'll take the non-cumulative preference shares. These are the second type in this nature. Here, the shareholders do not have any right to claim for the arrears, which fell due to non-making of any profits in a particular financial year. If it is unpaid means it will go lapse. No claim for arrears will be entertained, but they will enjoy only the dividends which are declared and cannot insist for claims for the unpaid periods. Next comes redeemable preference shares. Now, the name itself makes that the preference shares are redeemable like borrowings from outside environment and is liable to be returned or repaid, where the financial position is slightly improved and company cannot bear the liabilities any longer. In case these redeemable preference shares are not returned, it will be a permanent liability and it may affect the cash reserves of the company. So it is a burden to keep them forever. But there is no legal compliance to be fulfilled. It is a rule that unless redeemable preference shares are fully paid, they cannot be returned nor redeemed. This must be kept in view in affecting the redemption of these types of preference shares. Next one being the non-redeemable preference shares. The name itself clearly denotes that these shares which cannot be redeemed or returned during the lifetime of the company. Indirectly, it is a permanent liability which will coexist with the company as long as it is in good state. Then we will think of convertible preference shares. These are the special types of preference shares which will be converted during the lifetime of the company, subject to condition that whenever the financial status of the company is improved, here these shares will be converted into stock, or on the assessment of its valuation, the holders will give equity shares. Once this conversion takes place, these shareholders are treated on par with other equity shareholders or ordinary shareholders, and no longer they will be liable. These people have equal rights along with equal other partners of ordinary and equity shares to take part in the affairs of the company and right to exercise their vote in the meetings of the company and receive the dividends and the like. Whereas the last one being non-convertible preference shares, where they will be lying as the permanent liabilities because they are not supposed to be converted. They will remain as liabilities. They will coexist. They will not be converted during the lifetime of the company. It's a permanent liability, but given only to those people who have helped in times of need and to protect the interests of the company. The next one being participating preference share. It is an instrument with a fixed tag price and rate of dividend. In addition to the normal dividends, these people will have a right to claim something more. And after normal liabilities are met and other obligations paid, along with equity shareholders, they will claim additional share in the dividends from out of the earnings of the company. Next one being non-participating preference shares, where they do not have any such special right to claim for any more additional or surplus dividend from the profits of the company, and simply they are called non-participating preference shares. Now we'll come to the last one being the deferred shares, which are also called as founders shares. These are given to the promoters or founders of the company. This is a peculiar type of share in nature because this confers special right to claim over the profits only after making payments the preference shareholders and equity shareholders as decided in the annual general meeting. But this was dispensed with from the 1956 Indian Companies Act, and now they are not in issue as they are prohibited. From this, we had a clear understanding as to the various types of shares issued by the public limited companies in simple like equity shares or ordinary shares, second one being preference shares, and third one being deferred shares. With this, we conclude this session. Thank you very much.